The canoe cuts through open ocean. No compass, no map, no guarantee of return. Precisely return. Just a man, a boat, and the kind of courage that doesn't get written into textbooks. That man was Filipino, and where he was going, nobody was supposed to know. Long before Spain arrived with its crosses and cannons, the Philippine archipelago was already a trading empire in everything but name. Not an empire with walls and kings on gold thrones, something more fluid than that. A network, a living web of routes stretching from the South China Sea down through the Spice Islands, west toward India, east toward places that colonial maps simply marked as unknown. Barangay traders didn't wait for the world to come to them. They went out and found it. And somewhere along those routes, the exact path is still being pieced together. Something happened that mainstream history has almost no interest in discussing. Contact. Deep, sustained commercial contact between Southeast Asian seafarers and the civilizations of South America. The kind of contact that leaves fingerprints. The sweet potato is one of those fingerprints. Wait, sweet potato? Yes? Stick with me. There's a catch. The sweet potato, called kumara in Quechua, the language of the Inca, is native to South America. Full stop. It does not grow wild in Southeast Asia. It cannot cross the Pacific by wind or wave on its own. And yet, by the time Europeans arrived in the Philippines and across Polynesia, the sweet potato was already there, already cultivated, already woven into the diet and the language of the people. Linguists noticed it first. The word kumara in Quechua and its near-identical cousins across Polynesian dialects don't sound alike by coincidence. Words don't swim. People carry them. Somebody made that crossing, and whoever made it didn't do it once, stumble back, and never speak of it again. The agricultural spread of the sweet potato across island Southeast Asia and into the Pacific suggests repeated contact. Seasons of it. Trade. Now here's where the Filipino merchants enter the picture, and where things get genuinely strange. Austronesian seafarers, the ancestral group from which Filipino ethno-linguistic communities descend, were the greatest open ocean navigators the ancient world ever produced. Their boats, the outrigger canoe, the balangay, were engineered for distance, not for rivers. To be honest, not for coastlines. For open water, for weeks at a stretch, reading stars and swells and the behavior of birds. By the time the Inca were consolidating power on the western coast of South America, roughly the 15th century, though Andean civilizations go back centuries before that, Austronesian trade networks had already been operating for thousands of years. To be honest, thousands. Years. So when Inca oral traditions mention traders arriving from across the Western Ocean, and they do, these accounts exist, recorded by Spanish chroniclers who didn't fully understand what they were writing down, the question isn't whether contact happened. The question is who those traders were and what exactly they were exchanging. The Inca were not naive about commerce. Their economy ran on a state-controlled redistribution system, the mita. Everything moved through official channels. There were no private merchants in the way a Filipino or Chinese trader would understand the concept. You didn't just show up at Cusco with a bag of goods and start haggling. And yet, trade happened. Goods moved that shouldn't have been able to move. Shells from the Pacific were found deep in Andean burial sites. Certain textile techniques appear on both sides of the ocean with a specificity that stretches coincidence past its breaking point. And the sweet potato, of course. Vachi. Well, always the sweet potato, sitting there like an unanswered question. Think about it. The Inca system had no infrastructure for dealing with foreign merchants directly. No port cities, no open market tradition. Well, so when traders arrived, and evidence keeps suggesting they did, the exchange had to happen in a way that didn't threaten the state apparatus. it had to happen quietly. Picture it differently for a moment. Not a diplomatic summit, not a fleet of warships exchanging banners, a small group of men arriving by canoe on a beach that the Inca state barely monitored. Traders who understood from long experience across dozens of different kingdoms and cultures exactly how to make themselves useful without making themselves threatening. That kind of social intelligence, knowing when to be visible and when to disappear, that's not a skill you learn in a year. That's a tradition. A professional culture passed down through generations of people who made their living by going where they weren't entirely expected. Filipino and broader Austronesian merchant culture had that in abundance. They weren't conquerors, they were connectors. And the connectors in any historical period are almost always the people nobody writes about. The Inca erased the record on their end because the record endangered their monopoly on distribution. The Spanish erased it on the other end because acknowledging pre-colonial trans-Pacific contact complicated the narrative of discovery. And the Filipino traders themselves left no stone monuments. Their records were the sea, the routes, the knowledge held in communities that didn't need to carve their achievements into rock to know they were real. If you've been feeling like something was always missing from the story you were told about your own history, you're not imagining it. By the way, the script for pre-colonial Philippines gets written by outsiders looking in almost every single time. Let's say, and it always starts too late and ends too early and skips the ocean entirely. Important. If you want to understand how deep this absence actually goes and what researchers are starting to find when they follow the genetic and linguistic trails across the Pacific, stay with this, because what comes next changes the shape of the whole story. Here's what the archaeology is quietly building toward. And it's not a dramatic announcement. It's a slow accumulation of details that keep pointing in the same direction. Genetic studies published in the last decade have found traces of Amerindian DNA in populations across Polynesia. The signal is small but consistent. It predates European contact. And the geographic pattern of where that signal appears, the eastern Polynesian islands closest to South America, suggests the contact point was on the South American coast. People came from that direction, or went to it, probably both. The closest ancestral genetic connection to those Polynesian populations? Southeast Asian, specifically Austronesian. Now pay attention, the trail keeps leading back. And here's the detail that sits in the back of the mind like an unresolved chord. The Balangay boats excavated in Butuan in Mindanao, carbon dated to around 320 AD, are among the oldest watercraft ever found in Southeast Asia. Butuan, a trading city so significant it had its own gold jewelry, its own script, its own weights and measures for commerce. A city built entirely around knowing how to get somewhere and bring something back. Now pay attention. The people who built those boats didn't stop at the Spice Islands. The people who built those boats didn't look at the open Pacific and decide it was too far. So why did the Inca need the trade to stay secret? Because the entire legitimacy of the Sapa Inca, the divine ruler, rested on controlling what came in and what went out. Foreign goods arriving through unofficial channels were a political problem. They implied the existence of a world outside Inca authority, a world the Inca hadn't conquered, couldn't tax, and didn't control. Easier to absorb the goods quietly, use them, bury some of them with the dead, and never officially acknowledge the people who brought them. The Filipino merchant, or the Austronesian trader, whatever precise ethno-linguistic identity we give the figure, was useful precisely because he asked for no official recognition. Commerce was the point, not credit. That pattern repeats across Filipino trading history so consistently it almost functions as a philosophy. Move through, leave value, disappear back into the horizon. All right.